text this to him. Welcome into the Inside Bassmaster Podcast, and it is tournament season. We just wrapped up Lake Okeechobee. Congratulations to Tyler Rivette on his first Elite Series title. I'm your host today, Ronnie Moore, and my co-host, as always, Kyle Jessie, the digital content editor for Bassmaster.com. And Kyle, you humped it last night. We're shooting this podcast on Monday morning, but you were in Okeechobee, Florida yesterday, and you're back in Birmingham, Alabama, and then you're going to slide over to Lake Seminole in a few days. So any time at home is a good time at home, but I know those drives through the night, they wear on you a little bit.
Yeah, a little tough. Left Okeechobee, Florida at about 6:00 p.m. Excuse me, and made it back to Birmingham at about 3:30 a.m. Got some sleep this morning, and we're ready to rock. Got some fantasy fishing content in the works. As always, these quick turnarounds are good. It's fun to knock out 2 elite tournaments back to back. So there's definitely positives to it, but the negatives are that all this content we produce has to be turned around that much quicker. So got some work to do. We're gonna knock out the podcast. We're doing it today.
The real ones know, like, yes, we could take Monday off and rest because we just worked 4 days of an Elite Series event, but the real ones know work has to be done, and so we get it done. But wanted to also inform you guys, I did at the end of the last podcast, but Wednesdays before Elite Series events, we get about an hour of extra Bassmaster live coverage. We do a pre-show kind of previewing the event with some angler interviews with Zona, Tommy, myself. We'll jump in and out, Mercer and Davey as well throughout the times. Kind of a mixture of those 5 in some aspect each show. Some may not, just with schedules and things like that, and some will. So a little new feature that we do on Wednesday mornings, 9 a.m. Eastern time, and you can catch it for an hour on Bassmaster.com exclusively. We do archive it later that day, but we have so much content coming on Wednesdays that you want to watch it live so you don't miss it later. Kind of set the stage for Lake Seminole. It's a great preview idea that we're doing with that, Kyle, because some of these places we have, half of our schedule this year are kind of brand new to the Elite Series, or, man, the generation of fishermen may not even know that we were there back in 2011 or 2014, 2017. Like, they just don't know. That was a long time ago for the most part. So I'm excited for the previews and things. Kyle, you and I may be in the preview show. Oh, I'm in the preview show every week, but you may be joining me at times as well if we want to talk fantasy fishing more in depth. So I look forward to incorporating you as well. I don't think you knew that, and I just informed you one more thing that you're going to be a part of.
News. That's news to me. Fantastic. Let's do it.
Well, Kyle, let's jump into it. We talked about it just a moment. Tyler Rivette winning his first Bassmaster Elite Series event. Before we get into Seminole, I want your thoughts on Okeechobee. You were in the mess. I'm going to call it the mess, because at Lake Okeechobee, 700 something miles of shoreline, 500,000 acres, but there's only 4 areas that really factored, and that's South Bay, Moonshine Bay, North Shore. I'll say 5. North Shore, Tin House, and then you have the Kissimmee River, which won it, but it wasn't like a lot of anglers were there. It was just the angler. Tell me about your experience at Okeechobee, because I went there before with my dad, and I got lost in a maze of reeds, and so when you round the corner and you see 50 boats in an area, it's probably going to be a little bit different for you.
Yeah, no, it was way different. I had always looked forward to going down to Okeechobee and certainly enjoyed it, but now I thought you were going to say there when you said 4 areas, I thought you were going to say 4 acres of that entire lake are fishable, because that's the way it seemed when you were down there. There might have been, I don't know how many boats on the water that those last 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, but they were all seemingly in 1 or 2 different areas of that lake, which is pretty wild to think. But no, it is interesting because, like you said, it's one of those places, you hear a lot about here recently, the grass lines and things of that nature, the spraying, the hurricanes, everything has changed the lake a lot in a lot of different ways. It's hard for me to speak on that because I've never been there until this last week, but getting to be with my boat driver who's a guide there, superb guy, and have him explain to me some of like the areas that had way more grass and things like that. It definitely makes sense as to why it is fishing even smaller maybe than it has in past years, because the one thing you always hear about in Okeechobee is fishing the clean water and finding the clean water. Well, when I first got down there, I didn't really it was kind of hard to see that difference. But when you got in those areas with clean water, you could certainly tell there was a massive difference in, life around with being bait, bass, fishermen. There's a lot more fishermen, that's for sure. But no, it was really interesting, and it was really cool to see. But like you said, I think a mess is definitely the way I would describe it too.
And you were covering, I believe, Steve Kennedy and Jake Whitaker, Brandon Card. You were covering that whole area of the North Shore that those guys were in. They're a little bit, obviously, it's the way the map lays out. It's, the takeoff, Tin House to the west a little bit, and then you have North Shore, and then you have the Monkey Box and all of that. I took a screenshot of Google Earth from 2015 and what the grass looked like in the Monkey Box, and then 2019 screenshot, 2022, same spot. And it's amazing to see how much, how few, and then what is limited is left. But now we're on to Lake Seminole, a different kind of lake. The weather should be great, and we're going to get to talk to an Elite Series pro and champion and someone who just made the top 10 at Lake Okeechobee. So no rest for the weary. He drove up to Seminole last night to get started on his most highly anticipated event of the year. And so I'm excited to have Drew Cook on the podcast today. The thing about Seminole, I'll say maybe 10 anglers in our field have probably been to Lake Seminole when we were there the last time for the Elite Series. It's a little bit different than it was then. Kyle, I mentioned it, Drew Cook, our guest today, real busy schedule for him. Not only did he fish all 4 days at Okeechobee, start off the year on the right foot in the top 10, drove up last night and already is on the water starting practice today. No sleeping in, because this is, Drew, your most highly anticipated event. And it's hard to say that when the event you won last year is also on the schedule, but Lake Seminole means a whole bunch to you, Drew.
Absolutely. I have been looking forward to this for a long time, really since I started fishing, to make the elites and then have a event on your home lake. I'm really excited about it. Since the schedule's been out, I haven't really been able to sleep or anything, just thinking about this, and I'm really excited to get going this week. I think that the lake's going to show out. I think the town's going to show out. The people are going to show out. I think Bass is going to enjoy, Bainbridge, and hopefully we'll come back here a lot.
Well, Drew, that's one thing I actually wanted to get into is, like, just for those that are watching that may not know, kind of give us your history on, Lake Seminole, or, fishing it growing up as a kid, fishing tournaments. Like, give us kind of your history rundown of fishing the lake.
Well, so I grew up about 20 minutes from here, on another lake, but the other lake that I grew up on, there really wasn't any big money tournaments. You could fish, a couple of team tournaments that, you might win $1,000 or $2,000. So we had to come up here to fish for money. And so started fishing team tournaments up here. And this was, as soon as I got my driver's license, I was up here as much as possible. And I actually fished my first open here on Lake Seminole in like 2014 or 15. But I've got a lot of history here. It's pretty much my backyard. I slept in my own bed last night, and I've never been able to do that before, obviously. And it's nice. It's just trying to keep it simple this week, not overthink anything.
Lake Seminole special to me, Drew. This was the place that I got to cover my first Elite Series event in 2014, and it was a heck of an event for sure. And it got one of my favorite lure and technique, and by the guy who perfected it, it seems. Is this lake over the last decade? It was 10 seasons ago when we were last here for an Elite Series event. We've had opens in the fall and things like that, which is totally different. And we see how big, how tall the grass is, how topped out it gets. Is the lake in a good situation? We talked to Kobe Krieger about Okeechobee, about the cover and about the fish size and the health of those things. Give us an update over the last decade of Seminole, because we know that this place gets touched by people a lot less in terms of interference with grass and messing with the lake. This lake gets to kind of do its thing and let nature take its course at times.
Yeah, it does. And, it goes through a big cycle. And we've seen ups and downs in the actual fishing here since 2014. 2014 was probably the best year that I can ever remember in my lifetime on this lake. That's when they set the records for the biggest 5 fish limit. There was just countless 30 to, really 38-pound bags caught that year. But last year and beginning in this year, it's been really, really good. It's taken 19 and a half pounds to win 3 fish tournaments. And, that's stout. The grass is, we had a really bad hurricane in 2019, Hurricane Michael, or 18, Hurricane Michael. And it did what they try to do in South Florida. It wiped out grass in an area that gave other grass an opportunity to grow. And the grass came back different. There's different grass in those areas. And it's just made the fishing better. Up in the rivers, I don't know what the actual name of it is. It's yard grass looking stuff. It's super thick. You can't do anything to it. It has kind of taken over a lot of the backwaters up in the river, and that does something needs to be done about that by whether it be FWC or Georgia DNR or whatever.
For sure.
Because you can't drive a mud motor through it. You can't punch it. You can't do nothing. And it grows so much that a lot of the backwaters are closing up that you can't even get into anymore. But all in all, right now, the grass is really good in Lake Seminole. I feel like a lot of people think that the grass is a lot higher than it should be, and it is. But the grass did not die off last year. None. This year, we had a really cold spell in the winter, and that knocked the grass back pretty good. But I think it's pretty good, honestly.
Well, Kyle drove from Okeechobee to Birmingham last night, and so he can bring his lawnmower if you need that stuff that's in the backwaters cut. I don't know if you can't get any other things to take care of it. Kyle can bring a lawnmower when he comes on Wednesday.
Gonna take a minute for him.
A quick mower. Drew, let's talk about the conditions. Something that Ronnie and I talked about before we even started the podcast was that, knock on wood, barring any major disasters, you couldn't ask for really a whole lot better 4 days of Elite Series competition, weather and conditions than what we, have had and potentially will have. Being a local and being a favorite in the tournament, talk about the conditions you would prefer and if you like the way the conditions set up, because it seems like, in your Elite Series career, usually when the conditions are better and the stage is bigger, you step up bigger. It's not like you necessarily need it to be a grinders tournament for you to do well. Anybody that's followed, the cut line or the YouTube series or, just the Bassmaster Elite Series knows that to be true. So just talk about the conditions and, what your expectations are.
The conditions overall are going to be great for the tournament overall. We're going to catch them. We're going to catch them good. For me personally, I think the odds of me or Benton winning would be a lot higher if it was going to be super duper cold. If we had just a massive cold front, really like the last week coming into this week, it would put them in places that you can't find unless and really gang them up. But I'm not saying that you can't win this week because we don't have those conditions. Obviously, we can, but these conditions will be better for everybody.
For 104 anglers, yeah.
Yeah, a lot easier to catch them. You'll see more consistent big bags. Whereas if it was cold, it would be really top heavy. You'd have 3 people, catching over 25 pounds every day, and then everything else would fall off really quickly.
Drew, we talked about the conditions. I wanted to know what the water temperature is that you've seen today and how much we should expect to maybe see it rise over the next few days, and also the water clarity. I know you guys had a bunch of rain in this region, and with the Chattahoochee, the Flint, Spring Creek, there's a lot of places that can flow in dirtier water, but I know some of those places also flow in clean water just as fast and push it towards the dam much quicker. So is the water clarity ideal? Is it going to be getting cleaner? And then obviously, is it going to be warming up severely with all the weather we got coming through?
Yeah, the water temp this morning was around 58. And I think by the time our tournament starts, it should be, around 64, 65. The water clarity, we've got foot, maybe a little more than a foot visibility in the Flint. Spring Creek is still clear. And if they keep the gates open like they are, it'll stay clear. Or it'll keep cleaning. If they shut the gates down, then a lot of this mud's gonna settle in here. But I think they should keep dumping it and keep cleaning the water. But it's got like a perfect, little tinge to it that really makes it better for fishing, for winding and things like that. Not so much for sight fishing, but still know a couple of little hidey holes that got some clean water in it.
Well, Drew, I was going to ask that, obviously not to give anything away, but like in a typical year, just a pretty standard weather year, kind of what is the progression of, wintertime, pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn? Because I feel like it's weird having watched you just a couple of days ago catching post-spawners, and then just a couple of days later, you're going to be fishing for, fish on maybe the opposite end of the spectrum, it seems. Kind of talk about that a little bit, if you could.
Yeah, so we have more seasons than you were taught in school. So it goes from winter here, which is about 5 days long normally, and then you have fall spring. We're in fall spring right now. This is a time where it can be 80, and then you turn around and it's back in the 30s and freezing. And that's what it normally does. You'll have a big wave fish push up, but not all of them because of that next cold front coming. The fish here, though, they spawn. I mean, I've caught them on bed here the first week of June. So, I mean, they spawn from January to May, really. And so they know that. They know that there's probably going to be another cold front, and a lot of those fish just wait until everything's stable before they pull up there. But I think looking at the weather, if it's fall spring, we'll ride fall spring all week because it's supposed to be in the 80s. It's gonna be bright and sunny during the tournament, so it should be good.
We need some fall spring here in Arkansas, Kyle. I would love some fall spring. But Drew, 100 pounds, we're going to break the century mark this week. Me and Kyle both believe we will not break the century club all year, but I said this one would be the highest weight, and I think it's going to be upper 90s. But you knowing more about Seminole and having high expectations, are we hitting triple digits this week?
I think the opportunity will be there, but I don't think so. I think it'll be a high 90s event, mid to high 90s, just because if it was a little bit colder, then I think it would hit 100 pounds. But because it's so warm and everything's going to be pulling up, it won't take as much. But, you can do it here. There's no doubt about that. They had 3.5 days of fishing.
Yes, exactly.
14 and almost did it. And, you look at Brett Height, he had a terrible day too, I think, or whatever day it was. So, he was definitely on the fish to do it. But I don't see it happening this week. It could, but.
We saw an 8-12 big bass at Okeechobee. We saw 32-15. Are we going to see bigger than both those marks at Seminole this week for big bag and big bass?
I don't think so. This this place, it has some really big ones in it, but there's not a whole lot of them. There's a lot of 7-pounders, a lot of 5s and 6s, but not a whole lot of 8+s. And I know Bernie caught a 10-pounder the last time that they were here, but that is, it's very rare to see double-digit fish on Seminole.
Unless you're probably looking at them.
pounds.
Yeah.
Somebody could probably catch 32 pounds, but I don't see it. I think you'll see a high 20, like 28, 29, probably like a day one, and then a bunch of 25s.
So it took 56 pounds to make the top 10 at Okeechobee going into the final day. Will we see 60 pounds? Well, it's going to take 20 a day. I know those weights are going to stack up probably a little bit more with the quality of those 4 to 7s, like you said, how many live in Seminole. Are we going to see 20 a day just to make the top 10?
Yeah, I think you'll need 20 a day to make the top 10. I think the check cut will be probably somewhere around that 16 pounds a day.
I'm kind of just rapid firing a couple of things that people want to consider. What's the drive distance from Earl May Boat Basin at the takeoff in Bainbridge to what you would say the mouth of Spring is, where you can finally hook a right turn to get in there? What are we talking time-wise? If there's no crazy wind pushing against you or going with you, if it's just a normal conditions, you're running from the takeoff to where you can hook a right and go into Spring Creek, how long does it take for the elite guys to get there?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Will you see shoal bass? Will shoal bass play this week? No. Okay. That's what I was. Hey, it's a curious question. I said maybe in May or June for one guy, but I didn't think February. Go ahead, Kyle.
Drew, I was going to ask, naturally we're going to get into some fantasy fishing picks once we let you go here. Obviously you're going to be selected extremely high. Give us a pick maybe of a guy based on their strengths that maybe doesn't have the experience there that you think the lake will set up well for.
I really could see David Mullins winning this tournament, just winding something, and not knowing, really what to do, and just getting in some grass and going. But another guy would be Buddy Gross. He's actually won a Toyota here before, and Brian Schmidt. He's a big grass guy. It seems like he excels whenever there's large expanses of grass. And that's exactly what we have here, is a massive flat with grass everywhere.
Drew, last thing, we talked to Brandon Polinick. Well, first off, before I get to that, you guys are doing the cut line once again. You jumped on board a couple years ago of producing video of you and Drew Benton on the road catching fish. That is going to go strong for 2023, correct? And also, what a way to start the cut line series with a top 10 at Okeechobee.
Yeah, absolutely. We're heavily invested in the cut line again. Hoping that it will take off. We're fixing to start making some merchandise for it. It was a great start to the year. I can't complain. I think I did the exact same thing last year. Finished in 10th at St. John's first tournament of the year. So looking to get off on the right foot and stay on the right foot all year this year.
Well, no pressure. We had our prediction show, and we had our reigning and defending AOY Brandon Polinick on the show. And I said, other than you, name an elite pro that could win AOY this season. And he said Drew Cook. So you looked real good based on his predictions after the first event. So congratulations on the great start to the year, man. I know every college event I fished against you caught the big bass of the tournament. You and Cody Spears somehow always found the big bass of the tournament. So best of luck to you. And I know the last time I was at Seminole, I caught all of the bucks in Wingates. They're never going to go in Wingates ever again because I caught all of them. So and had 8 pounds. So good luck to you. Stay away from the buck bass, and we will see you in a couple days on Bassmaster Live.
All right, sounds good, Ronnie. Y'all have a good one.
Drew Cook, everybody. We appreciate Drew, Tristan, the whole crew, Drew Benton for the Cut Line series, hopping on. the Inside Bassmaster podcast today. Kyle.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that, because I mean, that's like, something you and I were talking about before we even started the podcast. It's like, it's weird that Seminole is really not even that far from Birmingham, where I'm at right now. But you just don't hear a ton about it, for as good of a fishery as it is. For the, the cover and the vegetation that it has. I mean, it's such a good fishery, but like, it was weird. Like, it's, other than the previous elite we had there, and, some of the other smaller tournaments in the last few years, it's not like there's just an endless amount of research you can do on it. So, excuse me, Drew giving us that insight was definitely good, and I hope that everybody else found that helpful as well, because I certainly found that very helpful, and made me a little more I guess confident in some of my fantasy fishing picks.
It made me worried because Brian Schmidt burned me at Okeechobee, and do I pick him again and get burned again, or do I not? So it's like, dang it, man. And no, I feel it. And one thing I think is, they're north of Orlando, they're east of Birmingham, they're south of Atlanta, and there's so many places around there that yeah, it's not a hub, but man, there's so much fishing history there. We always see it's late in the year or early in the year for tournaments here. You could have a tournament every month, and it would be a different deal, different outcome, different areas probably, or you'd see a couple weeks where this is a hot area of the lake. But Seminole seems to just be so dynamic. And I mentioned that college tournament. I knew where it was going to be one. I mean, it's going to be one in Spring Creek. That's where all the college guys go, and they catch 20, 25 pounds. And they also catch 3 pounds because it doesn't work out for them. And so I said, I'm going to go somewhere else, and I'm going to catch big ones off bed. And I was texting my partner in that event just the other day, and I said, man, just imagine if we had a wave roll in there, we would have just wrecked them. I mean, nobody was there. We caught 25 bedding fish, and they were all pound to 2 pounders. So it could be like that. And then the next day of an elite event, that's a 1-day tournament. You go in an elite event, you roll into an area and they're all buck bass the next day, and there's 7 pounders laying everywhere. And you're like, this is going to get, I can't catch all these in enough time. So Seminole is going to be diverse. I like the fact that the water's 58 to 60. That means we're going to have plenty of pre-spawn fish. We could have some bedding fish. We could really see it fish a little bigger than if it was all cold or all spawn. So I like that a lot. Kyle, any other thoughts about Drew Cook's conversation with us? Because that was the one thing that I was worried about, was the clarity of the water. If it had been muddy, or if it's already cleaned back up, what makes it get muddy? So now I'll have to check the Woodruff, lock and dam, and make sure that they keep it open. And so when they stop it, that water backing up could get dirty in those places.
Yeah, no, I think that the one thing he mentioned there, that I think any bass fisherman knows the term, like, good fishing color, the water clarity, and that definitely is good to hear, because it's something you and I talked about, is the water clarity obviously is a huge factor, really in any fishery, but especially down there. So to hear that that's that's about where it needs to be, and then
and
the
it's
fact
a non-factor,
the fact that the conditions are going to be good, and like you said, the fact that you're going to have, based on the way he just made it sound, fish in both stages between pre-spawn and possibly spawn, definitely going to be an interesting tournament. I will say that small time of us talking to Drew Cook has got me way more excited about this tournament than I was previously. That's for sure.
I was going to tell Tristan, his cameraman, who was in the boat with him for practice today, I was going to say, you should do a green screen on your Zoom background of Okeechobee so that we don't know where he's fishing. But I guarantee you, he took him to a random bank. He got, I've never fished here in my life. We're going to go here for the Zoom call. But no, Drew's been so excited about this. He texted me when his schedule came out and said, hey, can I write a column each month about the lead up to Seminole? It's like, you can do whatever you want, bud. I was like, we'll set you up with whoever, and you guys can get that thing written down. And he's previewed the event. There's a lot of pressure on home guys. You don't want to ever fall flat, but he's now a few years into this deal. He knows how to win. He's done that. He knows how to get top 10s. And I think that as long as he doesn't necessarily, if boat draw matters to him, as long as he doesn't get screwed by a boat draw maybe on day one, he can have a good start to this event. And so I'm looking forward to see who does play. But by the sounds of it, when you think about Buddy Gross, Brian Schmidt, David Mullins, winders, moving bait guys, that's exciting to hear about. Then you can do a Punnett square of guys that have also those traits. And it kind of, you got like 30 picks to choose from. This guy's a good moving bait guy. This guy likes to fish a lot of offshore. This guy likes to sight fit. You got so many different things. And so leading into fantasy fishing, let's do that. Let's go through our possibly abysmal teams, because after last week at Okeechobee, that's all you can do to explain my team is call it abysmal. I started off with 831 points. I always do terrible in the first one, okay? I always have to catch up. I had 831 points in Rapala, Bassmaster Fantasy Fishing, 26%. Holy smokes, I'm 20,600th in the world. The king had a hard week in his castle, but we got another shot to turn it around this week. How'd you do, Kyle?
Oh, not much better. My team was at 41.5%, which is also pretty bad. No, I don't know. My thought was, I don't feel like any of my picks were too far out there, in the sense that I didn't have a whole lot of like 0.6% player percentage guys or anything crazy like that. So I was like, how did this many people get it right? Like, how is this so far down? Like, I didn't feel like my team was super far out there, to be honest, for the first tournament. But no, it was really, really bad the first couple days. I had two guys in the cut, and then the third day I had John Cruz jump up into the cut. I mean, excuse me, after the second day jumped up into the cut. So yeah, it went the right direction the last day or two, which is what you need, but it didn't start good enough for the right direction to really matter a whole lot.
Yeah, how about this? I had Chris Johnston, Jacob Porosnik, Brian Schmidt, Bernie Schultz, Hank Cherry. Okay, they were 4, 4, 4, 5, 11% for those five, and not the percentage weren't in the order I named them. I went down the list and then back up it, but I was sitting high as a kite on day one. I had the day one leader, the biggest bass of the day, the biggest bag of the day. I was about to get all the bonus points. Bernie's going to ride this. He's going to win his first Elite Series event. He's going to do it. Chris Johnson was 23rd. Hank Cherry was 38th. I had three guys better than 38th. Then Schmidt and Porosnik were 70th and 85th. They both improved. We'll give them credit. Schmidt moved up 6 spots. Porosnik moved up 13 spots. They still finished 64th and 72nd. Everyone else who was in the cut dropped every day. Chris Johnston, 23rd, went to 41st and finished 43rd. Bernie Schultz, first, dropped to 14th, dropped to 34th. Hank Cherry, 38th, and then dropped to 61st and missed the cut. So I had three guys in the 60s to 70s. My other two who made the cut dropped to 34th and 43rd. So terrible week. And Brandon Cobb went and took the big bag and the big bass from Bernie Schultz the next day. And so I lost out on all the bonus points. I got 5 for my troubles. He led one day. I got 5 bonus points for my troubles. Not good, man. But my tiebreaker weight, I had 84.10 and it was 86.15. So I was not too far off the winning weight. I just had no idea who was going to do well.
At least a little consolation prize to send you on your way out.
Little consolation. Let's get into our picks for Seminole. Feel a little bit more confident about this because you can fish a lot of places at Seminole. You're not banking on boat draw. You're not banking on a shiner boat catching a 7-pounder that your angler is going to catch in 5 minutes. All that stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. We did it reverse last week. I'm gonna go first this time, and then you can respond afterwards. But my bucket A through E: Patrick Walters, Buddy Gross, Luke Palmer, Drew Benton, and Corey Johnston. Man, I had to battle high percentages here. I had to adjust on picks because of that. Walters, bucket A, sitting at 6%. Drew Cook sitting at 45%. In bucket A, I've never seen it work where you pick the highest percentage guy in bucket A and be successful, because everyone in bucket A is either 7 events into the year and they have all done well, or after the first event of the year, this is the top of the points race. It's a little more shaky. Guys can drop out much quicker, but with some of the guys that made it, that's a good bucket A. And for 45% to be on Cook, I trust him. Like, we just talked to him. This is our podcast. We chose to talk to Drew because we know he's going to catch him. I just can't. There's so many guys in bucket A who are going to catch him. So I think Drew Cook was the only bucket A angler at Okeechobee to make the final day. I think that's the way it was from last year's AOI. So that says something. Can he do it again? Maybe. I picked Walters because he was 6%. You go to bucket B, Buddy Gross, 7%. Shoot, give me some of that. He's in the bucket with Greg Hackney and Brandon Polnick. They're at 26 and 18%. Buddy Gross at 7. Give me Buddy Gross all day. Not even worried about wanting to change that. Bucket C, Luke Palmer. Didn't choose it because of percentages. John Cox is heavily favored at 35%, and everyone else is kind of filtered in there. You got 11% for Chris Johnston, 9 for Stetson Blaylock. I didn't choose because of percentage in this bucket. I think Luke Palmer, whether it's out, off, or it's flipping grass, chatterbait, and sight fishing, I like Luke Palmer this week. Bucket E had to go high percentage here. Or bucket D, when you get down to here, this is the guys who just flat out didn't catch them. These are the guys who didn't catch them. Bucket E is the ones who flat out didn't catch them. And Drew Benton, 46%. Ain't no way we're going to be at Okeechobee and Seminole, and both are bad for Drew Benton. He's going to have to catch him in one of them. If he didn't catch him at Okeechobee, he's got to catch him at Seminole. I feel good about Drew this week. Even with the high percentage, I'll risk it for the biscuit that low in the buckets. And then Corey Johnston. When, Kyle, do you get the opportunity to pick a Johnston in bucket E? Never. So I got to pick him when he's there. This is the bucket E, the flat out didn't catch him, bottom 20 guys. And with Jason Christie having 45% pick rate in bucket E, I got to go with Corey Johnston at 14.8, basically 15% there. Keith Poche didn't fish the first event. He's fishing this week for sure, 11% for him. So we will see. And kind of the only reason why I asked about shoal bass was because of Keith Poche. So who knows how far and where he'll go in that boat. But those are my 5 picks. I think the weight is going to be 96.11, somewhere around there, probably 98.11. But if it gets to 98.11, let me be wrong and just freaking catch 100. Like if you're just going to get within a pound, just catch 100. But I think it's going to be 96 to 97 pounds. There's my buckets. Walters, Gross, Palmer, Benton, Johnston. Definitive, clear cut, not changing, not wavering. Comeback time.
I like your picks a lot. There was a few of them that I actually consider myself. Walters in A. I've certainly considered, and I absolutely considered Palmer in C. You know, there's some guys that typically every year will have a pre-spawn or 2 event that just blow it out of the water, and Palmer seems to be one of those guys that typically is super consistent during that time of year.
I think it could be his Santee. It could be his Santee this year.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like him a lot in C. I didn't go with him, but I'd certainly considered it. I'm going to be really transparent here. Okay. So usually when we do these things, I'm already primed up, ready. We have I've already written my fantasy column for the website. Like I've got a lot of reasons why I like each guy. Not the case. Like Ronnie mentioned, I've been sleeping mostly all day up till this point. So these picks were just kind of off the brim, but right now I don't plan on changing them. I think these are the guys.
For the podcast, I gave him 20 minutes to pick his team. I said, hey, you only have 20 minutes, but if you're awake and coherent, pick your bands. We're about to do the podcast.
So we're ready. But okay, so I agree with your point for the most part in bucket A about when you get that many guys together, typically the highest percentage guy is never the guy. You're spot on. I'm going against that logic though, and I am going Drew Cook in bucket A. I had predetermined before the season even started that no matter what at Seminole, I was going both Drews. Doesn't matter if they were 100% or 1%. I was going with both of them. Didn't matter. So I've already decided that mentally, so I'm sticking with that. Moving down to bucket B, for the same exact reason I think that Luke Palmer could be good. I think Brock Mosley in bucket B is somebody that could absolutely do well there. Obviously, super good with the vibrating jig. Pre-spawn events, I mean, typically is almost always going to have one of those breakout events, maybe more than one. At 5.3%, I really like Brock Mosley. Bucket C, I'm going real low percentage, 1.9%. David Gaston. I'm going David Gaston in bucket C for the same reason. Dude is a vibrating jig fanatic. Like, I'm certain, I'm not saying he's going to finish in the top 10, but like he's going to figure out a way to catch him on a chatterbait. Like, I think this event sets up really well for him. There's a handful of guys in bucket C considered. Like you said, John Cox and Lester taking up a big percentage of the players there, which I understand. I think both of those guys could easily catch them. There's a handful of names outside of those that I really considered, but I'm going to take a risk in bucket C. The reality of it is we got to start stepping up here. I mean, we're talking about me and you are in the 20s and 40s percentage wise. We can start taking some risk. I know it's early in the season, but I'm going to take a calculated risk in C with Gaston. As I previously mentioned, I had already determined both Drews were going to be on my roster. So bucket D, I got Drew Benton. Same thing you mentioned. I just don't see a scenario where he's not gonna, where he's gonna start 0 for 2 basically to start the year. I just don't think that's gonna happen. And then bucket E, I've got Todd Auten in bucket E at 2%. Todd Auten is a winder. The same reason that Cook was talking about Mullins. I like Todd Auten in E. I mean, he is a winder and he can catch them on a chatterbait, a trap, spinnerbait, you name it. There's been an Elite Series tournament where he's caught him on pretty much any winding bait you can think of. So I think at 2%,
just be
really
weary.
like him.
Be weary if they do the winning weight gallery and he says 59 pounds at Seminole, remove him, because that's what the quality he's on. Because he put 59 at Okeechobee, and after 2 days we're at 55. And I was like, Todd, I know you're projecting your feelings on the event, but that's not a good prediction, man. That's not good. So
he just missed it by 30 pounds.
Yes, just run. I mean, he missed it on the negative side, 30 pounds. I missed it last year at the Harris chain on the positive side by 30. No, I missed it like 52 pounds on the positive side. I added it up, Kyle. I added it up. If you take all my percentages of my picks for the 5 buckets, I'm at 76%. And your bucket A and bucket D are 96% just for those 2 buckets. So you definitely didn't spare, but I don't blame you. It's hard. But like I said, or like Drew said, if it was a little colder, if it did have that actual early spring, late winter feel instead of mid-spring, early summer feel, no doubt I'm on the same train. I'd pick both of them. Now, I may flip-flop and drain the lake. You'll be surprised by who I leave off and who I put on. But for this, try to hedge your bets. I'm just assuming I got to do Drew Benton. There ain't no way he's not going to catch him 2 events in a row near his home and his style. What'd you put for your winning weight? Now that you can reconsider it after you talk to Drew on the podcast with us today,
I think I'm going to stick with it. It's a little lower than maybe you guys were suggesting, but I got 92.10. I don't really have any reason. I think I typically always go a little low. We know this, obviously. I'm okay with going a little low just because there's almost always, it's one of those things. It is very difficult to predict because of the fact that, Southern fisheries, springtime, there's so many variables that are like out of the angler's control, out of our control, to where like I think that it might be another one of those deals like Okeechobee. We might be on pace for 110 or 105 or whatever it was, and it fall off based on people fishing in same areas, or who knows. I got 92.10.
Sure. I think you could see mid-50s. Yeah, I think you could see mid-50s for leading after 2 days, and then you catch 40 pounds the next 2 days instead of catching 30 pounds, and you get to mid-90s. Let's do Drain the Lake now, and I'm gonna let you go first with picking 4 of them. But a little synopsis: I've taken the heat. I'm in the kitchen. I'm not afraid of the heat. I've called myself the king of fantasy fishing, and I said this is my game mode. Last year, I went conservative in the first one. I didn't want to burn all these guys too early, and I had 1,200 and something points. If I have 1,600 or 1,700 in the first event, I win fantasy fishing for the year. But ifs and buts were candies and nuts, everything would be a Merry Christmas or whatever. If a frog had wings, he wouldn't bump his butt. That's basically it doesn't matter that I say that, but we were close. We were in the double digits for finish, in the 2-digit category there. But this year, I didn't go conservative. I kind of went for it a little bit on some stuff. Some things didn't pan out, and I'm at 52% with my 1,400 points, my 1,386 points. And based on that at Okeechobee, I mean, I don't think I burned too many people. You can tell me how you feel about this when I tell you my picks as soon as they load. But I know I went, well, it just crashed. Oh, here it is. So my picks for Okeechobee are as follows. I know I had Scott Martin. I used Kobe Krieger, so I used 2 of the locals. Scott went from 2nd and finished 30th. Kobe Krieger started in 73rd and went to 96. That was, you never want to pick the guy on their worst finish of the year, but I think I did. I think Kobe Krieger's going to have better than a 96th place finish everywhere else this year. And I picked him on his home lake, when he did the worst. Then I had Gary Klaus, who was up in the 20s after 2 days and dropped down to almost to the bottom of the cut after day 3. Gussie came in 38th for me. I'll take that. A lot of people are going to use him up north. A lot of people are going to use him at the Classic. I was feeling good when he was 21st after the first day. I was like, this is going to be solid. But 38th, he could still get beat out, by those 2 events that I know a lot of people are going to pick him. Frank Talley, I remember he caught a 9-pounder at the Kissimmee chain, so I thought his luck in Florida was turning around. That was not the case. He finished 87th, burned him for the year. Bob Downey was in 17th after day 1, dropped to 54th and missed the cut. Really thought after day 1 I had a sneaky good pick with Bob Downey there. Caleb Kufal, a bright spot, moved up every single day of the tournament for me. Started 47th, went to 45th, finished 39th, right there around Gussie. Scott Martin went from 2nd to 30th, like I said. Will Davis Jr. ended up being my best pick of the week. If you're going to burn a Lake guy, or if you're going to burn a Coosa River guy, when there's one of those on the schedule, you better have a good top finish. Finished 14th place, my best finisher of the week. Congratulations, Will Davis. You're in my good graces going into week 2 of your elite career. Thank you for playing and helping my team out. Kyle, how'd you do? Because I'm at 52%, and I don't like when my gas meter there on fantasy fishing is right in the middle. I don't like being half filled, half empty. I need to be all the way in the green. Okay.
I'm at 70.7%. And yeah.
I gotta catch up. Oh, I gotta catch up, man. I'm getting dog walked over here.
There's a bunch of guys.
I'm like the Florida Gators playing against the Razorbacks on Saturday. That's how I feel right now.
Yeah. As soon as you come out for the second half, just beat.
Forgot how to shoot the ball.
I don't. It's not like I had anybody that was super high. I had nobody in the top 10, but a lot of just decent, inside the cut finishes. Hallman at 29 or in 29th, Bernie Schultz 34th, Cliff Prince, 42. Also had Kobe Krieger. That was a tough one to swallow. Derek Hudnall 57th. If you're gonna miss the cut, just a few places, not that bad. Brian Schmidt, that was definitely hard to figure. Expected more out of him there for sure. Kyle Welcher 13th. I was okay with using him down there, and I think that's at the end of the year, unless he wins one somewhere, I think that I'll be happy with that. And then Scott Martin, couldn't justify keeping Scott Martin off, and had a 30th place finish. So sitting at 70.7%. Feel like I didn't necessarily drain, no pun intended. I didn't drain the field too much or drain the lake too much there, but I'm happy with the start. I think that, like you said last year, I think I've also started a little lower. So yeah, not bad, and hopefully gonna make a charge here. Both of us gonna make a charge in this event.
Just prefacing, I set my lineup for every event beforehand in the spreadsheet, and I could share my screen and show you the spreadsheet, but then I give away all my picks. But I've locked in the 80 anglers I'm going to use. I've already locked them all in. Okay. So when you hear my drain the lake this week, you're going to be like, man, Ronnie is loaded for bear. He's trying to make up for sucking in the first one. No, I already had it planned out this way. I just figured I'd be coming off a better finish. So Kyle, give me your first 4. Just pick 4 of your drain the lake 8 and give me your first 4.
Yeah, so let's just go chalk to start with. I got both the Drews. Got Drew Benton, Drew Cook. I got Mark Frazier, not necessarily just because he's from Georgia. I don't necessarily, if I had to guess, I would bet he doesn't necessarily have just an endless amount of experience there. Just seems like an event that I think he could do well. Obviously, coming off a top 10. He was another guy in his young Elite Series career has performed really well in springtime events. So Mark Frazier, and then I'm going a little old school. Going Mark Menendez to round out my first four. One of those guys that I feel like will find a way to catch him. Pre-spawn typically does well as well. And when I started looking at the season as a total, it's like, I think this is one of the events I think Mark Menendez could do really well.
For my couple chalk picks as well, there's, this schedule was very difficult in terms of placing people ahead of time, because I was like, man, you got guys who did well at Santee Cooper, but it's a different time of the year this year. Do you hold them? Do you use them? How do we roll this into the next one? Then we got Lake and the Sabine, which fish real similar to, the springtime events, but they're in the summer. So those there's so many styles. Well, I use Drew Cook. I'm saving Drew Benton for another event down the road where we could be looking at him. So I've got Drew Cook, Brandon Lester, Chris Zaldane, and Greg Hackney. Those are my first four for Drain the Lake. Cook, no explanation necessary. Lester, man, I really think he does well this time of the year. He does well all year consistently, but I think that this is a great stylistic event for him. He is a bladed jig fiend as well. Lipless, he's not afraid of that. He's fished Gunnersville this time of the year plenty when the grass was on the come up, and they're how they associate to that. I think that that's a big deal. I think there's going to be a couple people catching him on big baits. And so I'm just going to use Chris Zaldane now. I'm not going to save him for smallmouth. If you look at his record at the St. Lawrence, it's okay. He made a top 10 last year, but let's be honest. There's probably 5 or 6 guys with better track records there. So I'm not afraid of using him before the smallmouth swing. I think that big baits, forward-facing sonar, big stationary targets like standing timber or stumps or grass lines to do his deal like this, or with his regular soft swim bait that he's created. I think that's the deal. Greg Hackney, man, I think he's going to weld some big ones this week. I think that he is going to find either some spawners, or he's going to be able to flip or chatterbait. I mean, thunder cricket, whatever for him. I think that's, or a big jig. I mean, I'm a little afraid of Hackney. I think that he could really win this event. And I'll also say he had a conversation with me when he won the AOY in 2014. He saved his season. I think he said I had like 6 pounds on day 1 at Seminole, and was like, oh no, what in the world? And then he busted like 30 on day 2 or something to make the cut. And then he moved up again, and he had a great finish, and that propelled him good finishes beyond that momentum. So those are my 4 off the top: Cook, Lester, Zaldane, Hackney. Loaded for bear this week, dog.
All I know is that I like those picks. I've obviously no problem with any of those picks. Definitely seems like you loaded this lineup up. Let's be honest.
Hey,
you're letting it eat this event. No
I'm burning
question.
some guys. I'm burning some guys that I thought about for the classic, but I'm also like, man, if percentages don't matter, I do want to think about where they could be highly favored. And if I can sneak in a good finish before that, then I'm not with the pack, at least. I'm not afraid of them in that event. Like I would pick them for the classic. I'd pick them for this. But if I could sneak them in somewhere else earlier, when they're more under the radar, I think that sometimes that can work out well. Who knows? But I went chalk last week with a couple locals, and they burned me. So yeah.
I will. One thing I was going to mention as well is day 2 weigh-in when Hackney came and got his bag. He had that look in his eye, like he was mad at him, like he was real mad. Which makes me think that you might be right with a Seminole pick. It's one of those things we've talked about Hackney. It's tricky with Drain the Lake because you could justify selecting him for any of the first 6 tournaments. I mean, you just put your eyes, just pick one of the first 6, and you'd be like, well, he's probably going to do well there. Like, on paper, it seems like that would be the case. But
Okeechobee. I mean, he won at the Sabine. He was in the top 10 at Santee. Seminole. He has a good finish. Like, holy crap, yeah. And then top
Lake
10
could
at the
set up
St.
well for him.
Lawrence,
You
like
can't even-
whatever. Yeah. Champlain, he's probably going to catch
Yeah.
him, Classic.
All right. So to round out my final four here, I'll go four picks that a few of them that you're probably not going to expect, I guess. One, I got Ray Hanselman to start out the next four. Brock Mosley, going with Brock Mosley again on both lineups. Keith Combs and KJ Queen.
You're kind of loaded for bear a little bit.
Yeah, no, I got some guys, I got some dudes, but I think the deal is with those winders, and I that's the thing that has me a little worried is like if it does advance enough to where there's less winding and more, sight fishing and or spawn fishing, you might not be able to see them necessarily, but like fishing for spawners, maybe my picks would change. But Keith Combs is one of those guys I looked at and I'm like, this might be one of the best events for him setup wise of the entire season. Cause you're not going to Fork. We're not having a traditional ledge tournament per se. It's not to say that any of the other ones won't set up well for him, but it's like, this could be one that Combs could do really well coming off of, making the cut at Okeechobee. I think this suits him
last fall.
Yeah, I mean, literally has some momentum going, and I think we're just going to see a bounce back Combs altogether this year. KJ Queen, I mean, a guy that's been so quietly consistent. Another one of those guys that typically in springtime tournaments has done well in a short sample size. And then Ray Hanselman, I think anytime you get around big fish, Ray Hanselman is typically going to be a factor, and another one of those guys that's a good winder. So that's going to round out my final four.
And KJ may be a forward-facing sonar generation kid, but he talks about his queen tackle switchblade and a bladed jig all the time, and so that's a sneaky pick for using him. We match up on one of them. I got Ray Hanselman in my final four as well. I think that what he did at the Harris chain translates well to what he'll do here or what could factor here.
Look at us.
Bait wise, look at us. Who'd have thought? Look at us.
Me.
But yeah, not me. Buddy Gross, I got him on my team. I think that did I pick him on Rapala? I think I picked him on Rapala too, right? Yeah. So you doubled up with Mosley. I double up with Gross. Got Brian New and Cole Sands for my last two. I think that this could be a weighted out school of fish thing, but I also think this is a run and gun. You can go stop on this turn, stop on that school, wind them and catch them quick. Brian New, that sets his style, it suits his style of having 27 rods all cleanly put on the front deck of his boat. I'd expect to see that. And then Cole Sands, my rookie of the year pick got 0 points in the first event of the season. That's tough, but like I said, I think they're all going to take their lumps. What Logan Latuso did at Okeechobee is awesome. Where he could lack is up north. Cooper Gallant had a great start. Where he could lack is the Lake Sabine River, type of deal. Everybody's going to have their lumps, I think. So Cole Sands can come back from this. Tennessee River grass, lipless crankbait fishing. That's him to a T. I like Cole Sands for this, but let's go through our guys and say all 8 once again. I'll go first. Drew Cook, dog. Brandon Lester, dog. Chris Aldane, dog. I mean, I could just say dog for all of these. Greg Hackney, Buddy Gross, Ray Hanselman, Brian New, and Cole Sands. I like that. I'm loaded for bear, like I said, but I didn't do it because I had a deficit coming in. This has all been planned up in the heavens before the first cast was made.
So to list out all 8 of my guys, I got Drew Benton, Drew Cook, Mark Frazier, Mark Menendez, Ray Hanselman, Brock Mosley, Keith Combs, and KJ Queen. I've got a weird feeling. Every single one of those guys is going to make the 50 cut. It's going to happen.
Yeah, you got some Texans and some Floridians and some young guys and some old guys. You got a good little group there. Lineup. Yeah,
diverse lineup. We'll see how it goes. Me saying that, I guarantee you, one guy makes the top 50 cut now. But I've got a lot of confidence in all those picks.
when someone says on Wednesday evening that there are 9,000 bass on bed, I'm really going to regret having Brian New on my team since he doesn't know how to sight fish, and he says that. So I can't take him off my team.
I want to go back to that. I'm a little surprised that you're not saving him for Murray.
Dude, that's not his home lake. He lives in Saluda, South Carolina, but he's not his home lake. He lived at Lake Wiley. He fished Lake Hartwell. He didn't do Murray. I think everyone's going to get sucked into. That's the same reason why. Who else? I was looking at it in Rapala because I changed that lineup out each week. I don't map out my Rapala lineup because the buckets change. There was somebody in the lineup that's Georgia. There's only a couple guys that are Georgia, but there was somebody mapped out that said Georgia. Oh, Micah Frazier. Nothing wrong with Micah at all, but he's like such a high percentage in bucket B just because it says Georgia. I think a lot of people are going to pick that. I don't think he's going to do bad, but I think for Brian New, if it was May, June, July, I like him at Murray. April, man, it's going to be all over the board with what they can do. So I'm not using him at Murray, but I know a lot of people are. And he's one of those guys, like I said, some classic picks that I used early because they're going to favor the percentage. The value per finish will probably not be, what you want it to be at the classic. But yeah, obviously Gussie for me, when I picked him early, 38th, he's going to get better than 38th out of 55 at the classic. So that sucks that he fell down, but top 38%. We'll see. Is he going to be in the top 30? Is he going to be in the top 15 at top 17 at the classic? Maybe. So it's all a risk reward. But yeah, Brian New, Murray, that is a sinkhole that's going to catch a lot of. There's like that fake camo netting over top of a hole in the ground, and people are going to run straight through and just freaking go right through it.
For Brian New at Murray?
Oh yeah, they're gonna be like top 10 home link. He's gonna do it. And it's not, he doesn't know it like some of the picks I'm saving for it, in my opinion. And
I know is I've seen the results of him fishing enough local tournaments for me to believe that he might not be a local to the extent of Drew Cook, like growing up fishing there. But I think Brian New is a stick on Murray. And we'll revisit this obviously, but
what's he got to fish this? What's he got to finish this week at Seminole to make the pick worthwhile of not picking him at Murray? I mean, what is it? Top 10 or bust or top 20? Like, what's he got to do?
Top 5 probably.
Jeez, you're killing me. Anything else you want to talk about fantasy fishing wise? I think we covered Rapala and Drain the Lake pretty well there, and I'm so glad we had Drew Cook to preview it. Like I mentioned, we will have a preview show on Wednesday morning live on Bassmaster.com about Seminole. Mark Zone will be joining us. Davey Height with some anglers, I believe. Tommy Sanders and I will be in studio. Excited. The season's underway. We'll be a quarter of the way through the season after this week. And it's we just started. And we're going to be a quarter of the way through. Then we're going to have the Classic. Then we're going to have a month. And then we're gonna be halfway through the season. It's like we got 3 different back-to-backs this year. First event and second event, third event and fourth event, and then we got the last 2 events. So back-to-back gets us through the season pretty quick. So I need to start making some hay in fantasy for sure.
Yeah, no, the back-to-backs and knocking them out is really fun during the time period because it just like feels like you're rolling, but then it makes you hate the breaks you get. Love and hate, let's put it that way. You like the break sometimes, but then sometimes you get so in a roll and so tuned in with everything. It's like, gosh, we gotta wait another obviously the Classic, but for another Elite Series tournament, like several weeks. So let's enjoy it while we got it, and we'll
get your sleep when you
can. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you guys for joining us on the Inside Bassmaster Podcast today. We're trying to do an expedited Monday schedule every event. We're going to have a Monday podcast out next week, recapping Seminole and previewing the first Bassmaster Open of the season. I'm excited for Lake Eufaula and that whole schedule. My wife was writing down in my calendar all the events for Bassmaster this year, and she's like, wow, y'all have an Elite and an Open at Eufaula. And I said, nope. And she said, yeah, you do. And I was like, nope. And she said, yeah, you do. And I was like, we got 2 Opens at Eufaula. And she's like, the same lake? And I was like, no, there's 2 different lakes that are called Eufaula. She's like, well, why would they name them that? And so it's going to be a fun season. We get to kick off the Opens next week. But in the meantime, get ready for Seminole. It's going to be a show on Bassmaster Live. I think I can go ahead and say it. I'll probably say it on Wednesday. It could change. If someone with more of a higher pay grade or an influence than me comes in and changes it, it can change. But for the most part, right now, the Bassmaster Live lineup for the end of the or for Seminole for day one should be Tyler Rivette because he's leading AOY. We always give our love to progressive AOY leaders, and he's won the first event. So kudos to Tyler. He's going to have to wear a long sleeve jersey this week since he went Hulkamania on us. Drew Benton, Drew Cook on camera, John Cox, Kyle Welcher, and we do have Brian New on camera. So, maybe I'm onto something. Who knows? Maybe I'm onto something. We'll see. Kyle, get some rest, bro. Enjoy your time with your wife and your animal, and then get to Seminole and take some stellar photos once again. Okay.
That's the plan. We'll do it.
Okay. See you in the next one, bud.